The sun sank low behind the jagged mesas of the Wyoming frontier, painting the sky in blood orange and bruised purple. Dust curled around his boots as the cowboy led his mare, Dusty, back toward his cabin, silent and alone, just like every other day for the past 10 months. Clay Thatcher hadn't spoken to a soul since last spring. Not since he'd buried his younger brother, Luke, beneath the cottonwood tree out by the creek. They'd worked this land together, shared coffee in tin cups, fixed fence posts side by side. Luke had been his best friend and the only family he had left. When a rogue bronc threw him and snapped his neck clean in the pasture, Clay stopped living and started surviving. He quit town. Let the world forget him. It was easier that way. The world didn't need broken cowboys with empty words and silent grief. He rode out his days fixing what was broken on the land, avoiding people, and letting silence wrap around his heart like barbed wire. But everything changed the day the wind carried a scream. He was hauling hay when he heard it, a high, sharp cry that didn't belong to any animal. He paused, narrowed his eyes across the valley. Then he heard it again. Desperate. Faint. Human. Clay mounted Dusty and rode hard toward the sound. The wind slapped his face, and his heart beat faster than it had in months. As he rounded the bluff, he saw something that made him pull back hard on the reins. There, stumbling in the dirt, was a young woman in a torn white wedding dress, her veil tangled in sagebrush. She looked lost, panicked, and seconds later, she crumpled to the ground in a heap of tulle and dust. Clay rushed to her side, the old instincts kicking in. He slid off his horse and knelt beside her. Her skin was ghost pale, lips cracked, and her chest rose in shallow, panicked breaths. "Hey, hey now," Clay said, his voice gravelly from disuse. "Ma'am. You all right?" The bride blinked, barely conscious. "Water," she whispered. Clay pulled his canteen from his saddle and held it to her lips. She drank greedily, choking once, but he steadied her hand. "You're okay," he murmured. "You're safe." Her eyes fluttered open. Where am I?" "About 10 miles from nowhere," Clay answered, watching her face. She winced and tried to sit up, but Clay steadied her. "Easy. You fainted. Just breathe." For a long moment, the only sound was the wind rustling the grass and the distant cry of a hawk. Clay watched her face, the way her jaw clenched like someone holding back more than pain. "I ran," she whispered. "From my wedding. Couldn't do it. He wasn't who I thought." She looked up at Clay, and for the first time, he saw her eyes, full of fear, confusion, and something else. Hope. "You didn't have to stop," she added. I probably would have been fine. "I don't let people die on my land," Clay said simply. "Even if they're dressed for a party." The bride gave a weak laugh, and Clay felt something stir in his chest that had been buried with Luke. A flicker of warmth. "I'm Clara," she said after a beat. "Clara Winslow. And I think I just ruined my whole life." Clay stood and offered his hand. "Well, Clara Winslow, let's get you out of the sun before you ruin your lungs too." He helped her onto Dusty and led them back to his cabin. It was a modest wooden structure nestled in a small grove of trees, the only mark of civilization for miles. Inside, Clara drank more water, then tea. Clay cooked up some beans and cornbread and said little. She watched him in silence, noting the dust on his boots, the roughness of his hands, the stillness in his eyes. "You live alone?" she finally asked. He nodded. "Haven't seen anyone in a long while." "Why?" she asked, gently. Clay hesitated. "World gets quieter when you lose the ones you care about." She didn't press. Just nodded, and for the first time, Clay felt like someone understood the silence he carried. That night, Clara slept on the cot. Clay took the floor. He watched the moonlight fall through the cracked window and listened to her soft breathing. In the morning, she was stronger. Still shaken, still unsure, but steadier. She asked if she could help with the chores. Clay was reluctant at first but finally handed her a bucket and pointed to the chickens. Each day she stayed, Clara helped more, mucking stalls, cooking meals, patching the holes in the roof. She laughed more, and little by little, so did Clay. He learned about her life in the city. How her fiancé, Gavin, had changed after the engagement. Controlling. Cruel. How she'd ignored the red flags because she was afraid of disappointing her family. I didn't realize how far gone I was, she admitted one evening, sipping coffee by the fire. Until I looked in the mirror in that dress, and didn't recognize the girl staring back. Clay stared at her across the firelight. You were brave, he said. Running like that. Most people just stay and suffer. And you? She asked softly. What made you stay out here, and suffer? He looked down. My brother. He died here. And it felt wrong to leave. Like walking away from the only piece of him I had left. Clara stood and came over, kneeling beside him. But he wouldn't want you to stop living. The fire cracked between them. Clay didn't speak, but her words wrapped around the ache in his chest like a salve. Weeks passed. The snow came early that year. Clara stayed. They didn't talk about the future. Or the past. They just existed in the now, cooking, laughing, fixing, healing. One morning, Clay found Clara sitting by the creek, the cottonwood tree above her dripping gold leaves. I had a dream last night, she said. That I was dancing. In the middle of town. In boots, not heels. And you were there. He chuckled. I don't dance. You did in the dream. That night, she put on the old radio, static and all, and pulled him to his feet. It was awkward at first, Clay's boots heavy, his hands unsure. But Clara led gently. One step. Then another. Until the silence between them was filled with laughter and music. I think you're healing, Clara whispered. So are you. But nothing stays simple forever. It happened on a crisp morning, sky blue and innocent. A car pulled up the dusty road, sleek, black, out of place. Out stepped Gavin Winslow. Clara froze on the porch, her breath caught in her throat. Gavin stormed up, face red. Clara. You ran away from our wedding. From your life. What the hell are you doing out here with some dusty hick? Clay stepped between them. Calm. Firm. That's far enough. This doesn't concern you, Cowboy. It does, Clay replied. You're trespassing. And she doesn't want to talk to you. She's my fiancée. No, Clara said, voice shaking but strong. I'm not. I never was, not really. Gavin's face twisted with rage. You think you can run off and shack up with some broke rancher? You're throwing away your future for this? Clay didn't flinch. She's not throwing anything away. She's reclaiming it. Gavin glared, then turned to Clara. You come back now, or you'll regret it. Clara stood tall. I already regret ever saying yes to you. With a scoff and a roar of tires, Gavin peeled away, kicking up dust that lingered like a bad memory. Clay looked at Clara. You okay? She nodded, tears welling. I am now. Spring thawed the snow. Flowers bloomed near the creek. The land came alive, and so did Clay. He began to talk about the future. Fixing the barn. Planting new crops. Building a porch swing. One night, under a sky full of stars, Clara sat beside him and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For being the first man who didn't try to fix me. Just held space for me to find my own strength. Clay turned to her, brushed a strand of hair from her face. You saved me too, Clara. You gave me a reason to speak again. To feel again. She smiled. You think Luke would have liked me? Clay chuckled, eyes soft. He would have said I was a fool for taking so long to smile again. And then, under the endless western sky, Clay leaned in and kissed her. Years later, when people in town spoke of the quiet cowboy on the ridge and the runaway bride who brought spring back to his soul, they spoke with reverence. Not just because of the love they built, but because of the hope they carried. That even in the loneliest corners of the world, even after silence and heartbreak, someone could still be found. And hearts, no matter how wild or weathered, could still learn to beat again.